My name is Warren Parker, and it was my privilege to be kind of on the ground floor of starting the Pritchards Island Research and Living Shores Coalition. I want to welcome you all and welcome our special guest this evening, Governor Henry McMaster, who flew in here just a little while ago. And welcome, Governor. It's a real honor for you to join us tonight. Our goal tonight is to showcase the accomplishments of the University of South Carolina Beaufort's return to Pritchards Island and the work of the Pritchards Island Research and Living Shores Coalition in supporting and encouraging that work. And since we're running a little bit late, without further delay, I'm going to introduce the Chancellor of the University of South Carolina Beaufort, Al Panu.
Good evening. Oh, that is so good. It is absolutely wonderful to see so many friends of the University of South Carolina Beaufort gathered tonight to hear about the educational and research activities being conducted on Pritchards Island by our marine biology program. It is a distinct honor to have Governor McMaster joining us this evening, along with members of our legislative delegation. I know, based on the response, Senator Tom Davis here, Senator Chip Campson, Representative Bill Herb Kurzman, and Representative Shannon Erickson. And I know that Representative Jeff Bradley could not be here this evening, but he sends his best wishes. It is also an honor to welcome Mr. Duncan Van Duncan, who serves as the Chief Resilience Officer for the state of South Carolina, and Mr. Robert Boyles, Director of the Department of Natural Resources. And it is our privilege as well to have representatives of the Rhodes family here this evening, Stephen and his daughter Martha. It is through the vision of Stephen's father, Martha's grandfather, Philip Rhodes, that we have this pristine barrier island for education, study, and research. Welcome as well to our Beaufort County Council members, local mayors, and town city council members. If I try to call out every name, I will certainly miss someone, and then let me not risk that, okay? There are also many USCB students here tonight. I hope everyone will take this opportunity to meet these smart, bright, and energetic scholars. Governor, our purpose here this evening is to update you on a vital study and research taking place on Pritchards Island by the faculty and student of USCB. Your leadership was instrumental in resourcing our work on Pritchards Island, and tonight we want to report back to you and the other leaders in this room on what we have accomplished and our future plans. We will also speak to the growth of marine biology program on USCB Beaufort campus as we look to expand and build a world-class program that takes advantage of the unique opportunities afforded by Pritchards Island and the amazing living laboratory right outside of our doors here. As the governor has often repeated in his State of the State addresses, we must preserve our environmentally significant lands and waters so that they are not lost to mismanagement, flooding, erosion, and storm damage. USCB's research and education on Pritchards Island and our coastal waterways can be instrumental in that effort. At this time, I would like to introduce Warren Parker, the Executive Director of the Pritchards Island Research and Living Shores Coalition, founded 18 months ago here in Beaufort. Pearls promotes USCB's programs on the Pritchards and fosters a collaboration of groups and individuals to help build our marine sciences program on the Beaufort campus. Colonel Parker, come on in.
Thank you, Chancellor. Governor, you stepped forward a couple of years ago to make sure that Pritchards Island remained in good hands, and you made sure that the state made an enduring commitment to support continuing research and education on Pritchards. And tonight, as the Chancellor said, we're going to report back to you our legislators, our state and local officials, and the public on what we've accomplished and what the future looks like. Before we move on, I want to make one introduction. I want to recognize our board chairman, Mr. Jerry Schultz. Jerry does a lot of volunteer work and a lot of service in our area over the last 30 years or so since he's been here. In particular, his support for conservation and the environment. He's also serving right now simultaneously as the chairman of the Nemours Wildlife Foundation, and he sits on the board of the Beaufort Jasper Water and Sewer Authority. Jerry Schultz. I'm going to point out one board member who I want to point out, Mr. Walter Lubkin. Where are you at? Where is he? Okay, there he is. Walter and his family have, I think, been on Pritchards Island since forever. But Walter's been a valuable part of this operation, has done a lot of work for us behind the scenes, and he's done a lot of work for the marine biology program behind the scenes. So thank you, Walter. What's our vision? Our vision of Pearls is to use the extraordinary and unique location centered on Pritchards Island to establish a world-class research and education program for understanding coastal resilience and sustainable nature-based solutions in order to protect our shoreline and critical marine habitats. We believe that the generous gift of Pritchards Island by Philip Rhodes allows us to further the important research you're going to hear about a little later on from our faculty members. Key to our purpose is support for a top-tier marine biology program right here in Beaufort, with Pritchards Island as an outdoor classroom for students, faculty, and researchers, including those from institutions both here in the United States. For instance, Professor Paul Gaze, who I hope is here tonight somewhere. There he is. Paul Gaze from Coastal Carolina is interested in doing research in this area, and we have interest from international institutions in doing research here on Pritchards Island. Part of the purpose as well is to promote, as I said, nature-based solutions and living shorelines as a way in which to make ourselves more resilient to the storms and sea level rise that we know we're going to face. Why is Pritchards so important? As the Chancellor said, Pritchards is a pristine barrier island on the Atlantic Ocean. It is, to mix metaphors a little bit, the crown jewel and the gateway to an amazing estuary that we're allowed to live in. It's a perfect location as well from which to study the role of barrier islands and coastal resilience, along with their role in sustainment of migratory birds, insects, bats, reptiles, sea turtles, and other marine animals that are key to understanding how our environment fits together and sustain that natural environment. This estuary stretches from Calabogie Sound on one side to Port Royal Sound on the other, and includes the May Rivers, Broad, Beaufort, Chichessie, Colleton, Pocataligo, Whale Branch Rivers. It's a one-of-a-kind laboratory for study given its distinctive characteristics. What are those characteristics? I think we know a lot of them. High salinity, deep channels up to 60 feet deep in Port Royal Sound, the deepest channel south of the Chesapeake Bay, which makes us another reason that we're unique. Relatively low pollution, thanks to the management that has taken place in this area over the years. Robust marine and plant life in the sounds, and the highest tides in the southeast running naturally from 6 to 7 feet per cycle. This estuary has vast potential for study and research, and we've named it the Carolina Bight. I'll insert here, Governor, that we've had the Georgia Bight for some time, and we decided it's time to have a Carolina Bight. Not that we're in competition with anybody. This estuary, though, is unique in our nation and in the state of South Carolina. 50% of the salt marsh in the Atlantic coast is in South Carolina, and 50% of that is in Beaufort County. Salt marsh, of course, is vital to coastal resilience. It provides protection against storms, and it serves as a vast nursery that provides shelter, food, and protection to a wide variety of marine creatures. Less well known, and one that we need to pay more attention to, is its role in carbon sequestration. Salt marsh forms a natural carbon sink and accounts for the sequestering of 2,000 pounds of carbon per acre per year. I'll allow Mercer Brugler later on to explain to you what that process is. We're building and expanding on Philip Rhodes' vision of Pritchards as a center for research and education. One of the primary ways in which we're doing so is by collaboration with our partners throughout the region and the state, many of whom are here tonight. I'm not going to name them all because, as the Chancellor said, I will leave somebody out and their feelings will be hurt. But as in so many ventures, and the Governor's emphasized this in other talks that I've heard from him, collaboration among the various concerned parties and organizations across the government, nonprofits, universities, and colleges is the key to success. And your presence and support represents the many groups that have helped make this happen. Finally, if I can throw in one more pitch for the University of South Carolina, Beaufort, which includes this historic waterfront campus in Beaufort, along with Pritchards Island and a special estuary that we live in. It's an ideal environment for a world-class marine biology program. Marine biology is a growing program at USCB, and it's already attracting scientists and researchers and students who will use their talents to make a difference in how we manage the future challenge around in this area and in South Carolina on our coast of growth, development, and pollution. These students will be the future that allows us to manage that growth. As we get to that, I would like to introduce our scientists who are going to give you details on what's happening on Pritchards and the great work that they're doing every day with their students and other researchers from around the country. Dr. Kim Ritchie, Dr. Mercer Brugler, and Dr. Ty Petty. Please welcome them.
Thank you all for coming, and I'd like to thank everyone in the room that helped get us this funding, the Rhodes family, the South Carolina delegates, representatives, senators, and the governor. It's been a game changer for us, and definitely a game changer for all of our students. We've had dozens of students just on this first round getting hands-on experience and spending lots of quality time with faculty in the field, and not only faculty, but so many volunteers in the community that are treating them like their own students, that are teaching them so much. So I probably don't need to tell anyone in the room much about the history of Pritchards Island, but if you're not familiar with where it is, it's just south of Hunting Island and directly south of Fripp. This little rendition. So a little of the history, you can read a good bit of the history over here to the side. Thank you to the College of Arts for putting together this wonderful historic panel that we get to use tonight. So as many of you already know, the Rhodes family, Philip Rhodes, deeded Pritchards Island to the University of South Carolina in 1982, and shortly after a research program started on Pritchards Island. Within a few years, the family had donated money as well to build a research facility, which used to be back in the woods. Based on what most of you in the room tell me, I started coming out there just in the past couple of years, and just in 2022, it had to be removed because it's being taken by the ocean. And this is the way Pritchards is. It's slowly being taken by the ocean, so this is something we can witness almost on a daily basis when we go out. Just within the past couple of years, you all helped us get state funding, and this has been, as I mentioned, a game changer for getting our research program started. And this is, every now and then you can see parts of that tractor. It depends on the tide, so sometimes it's buried, some days it's visible. So one of the biggest challenges that we had trying to get research started on Pritchards was getting to the island. There are no bridges. The tidal fluctuations, as everyone in the room is aware, are tricky. We were able to purchase a boat with some additional funding we got for a shorebird study, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. So we were able to purchase kayaks. This is only half of them. I stuck my paddle boards out there as well. So Stephen Rhodes is donating his lot, not donating his lot, is loaning us his lot on Fripp, where we can launch our kayaks. So that's also been a game changer. As soon as we were able to get those, we were able to zip back and forth from Fripp at any time. For our purposes, for sea turtle research, which I'll talk about, you still have to be very careful about the tide. So you can't get through the middle of the island at high tide or even close to high tide. So we've been learning how to stay alive and get on and off the island. So I would like to turn this over. We're going to tag team you guys. So I'd like to turn this over to Dr. Brugler to talk about some of his initial efforts getting our students out, because he was entirely key to getting students and faculty out the very first year, essentially. And then we started growing the program.
Cool. Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm Mercer Brugler. I'm a professor of marine biology. Yeah, I know, Pinky. I see you. I am not one to stand behind a podium or use a microphone. I'm professor of marine biology, chair of the Department of Natural Sciences. Before I jump into these slides, I have a few people to thank. Before I got here in 2020, there were several people that were behind the scenes solidifying this marine biology program, and that couldn't have been possible without Joe Staten. Joe Staten, thank you very much. Eric Monti, our dolphin soundscape specialist, Ed D'Antonio, Steve Borgini, all of our marine biology faculty, thank you for solidifying this program. So in 2020, it was formalized. We had 6 students in the program. Now, great. Now we have 116 students in our marine biology program. Students, I want to see. I know there's a bunch of students, and thank you for choosing. So where to even begin? Pritchards Island. So the first year after the funding hit, Governor, thank you. Students, what were we taking from Battery Creek all the way to Pritchards? What was it? My pontoon boat, absolutely. So it would take us 2 hours to get to the island, which was a fantastic journey. We'd explore for a few hours and then come back. It was an absolute adventure, but now we're able to buy better boats, and we got this awesome collaboration with Fripp, so thank you very much for allowing us access onto the island. A controller, awesome. So in terms of what's happening, what is happening? Oh, okay, I totally messed it up. I'm sorry. Totally messed it up. Oh boy. All right, so one of the first projects we have is on oysters. If you go to the oyster, yep, there it is, cool. If you don't mind running, I'm horrible at this. So oysters, why oysters? Don't we know everything about oyster reefs? And the answer is no. How do you study an oyster reef? Well, if you're a scientist, you have to walk on it, and then you throw down this quadrat, which is like this meter squared thing, and then you're on it, and you're looking at it to see what's in it. Well, by the time you get there, things have either fleed or dug in or hid, and so you're not getting a true representation of what's living on the reef. So what do? We simply take a scoop of water now, and then my brilliant students sequence all that DNA that's floating in the water, and then bioinformatically looking at that using computers, and we get to see who's living on the reef without actually ever seeing these creatures, because we have their DNA sequences, which is really cool. So essentially, we're learning about the reefs indirectly without even disturbing them, which is really cool. Having said that, Brendan, today you were looking at the sequences, and we're supposed to be studying what's on the oyster reef, and what did you pick up?
A black coral.
A black coral from the Gulf of Mexico, absolutely. So this skeleton of a black coral, which doesn't occur here, is in my office in a Ziploc bag, and somehow the DNA was floating around the air and got into one of our reactions. So this method is very, very sensitive. So yeah, that's oyster reefs. Next, please. Oh, this is cool. So any of you who've gone to the beach, I know, Pinky, you told me not to lay down, but anybody who's been on the beach, and when you're sunning yourself on the beach, what's below you? There is a ton of life below you. There's all these wormy things and bug-looking things, but they're all really, really tiny, and they live on and among the sand grains, and so we want to know who's home, who's living there, and this is the perfect environment to do that because Pritchards has never been renourished. There's never been new sand added to it. So whatever's living in the sand has been there forever, essentially. So we can compare those creatures in our sand versus renourished beaches like Hunting and Hilton Head and things like that. Next, please. I think this is the last one. Oh, okay, I have to bring it up. Hold on 1 second. Hold on. I know. Okay. So, this is a sandal. It's literally a shoe. Joe, thank you for bringing it today. So this sandal has been floating in the ocean perhaps for years. Why? Because there's a coral growing on it, and it's got gooseneck barnacles living on it. Pinky, what does a barnacle do? I have to show you, absolutely. So a barnacle it's a creature that lives in shells and lives upside down, and it feeds like this. So its whole life, it's upside down. Anyways, this shoe has been floating around for years. Where did it come from? Where are these animals from? In comes our collaboration with the Smithsonian Natural History Museum out of Washington, D.C. They want us to go to Pritchards. I'm running out of breath. The suit is really tight. I haven't worn it in like 12 years. I got bigger. So anyways, my wife told me not to do this. So we go to Pritchards Island and we literally collect trash, and we're doing it again this Friday, and we want to see who are the ocean travelers on our trash, and where did they potentially come from? Are we having invasive species move in our area? And it's all student driven. Lynette, thank you so much for leading this project. So everything you're seeing here is student driven. The faculty, we just oversee, we make sure everybody stays safe, but it's all student driven. I'm very excited. And we think we potentially found a new species, on Pritchards Island, just based on the stuff we're finding on the trash. So if anybody's going to be on the island fishing on Friday, you will see us collecting trash there. Is that all I have? Oh, thank goodness. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
He's excited. I don't know if you noticed that. So if you've seen our little circus sideshow before, we bring in Kim, calm and deliberate, and telling all the facts. And then Mercer comes here to get everyone excited, and then I come in with this low, monotone voice to calm everybody down. I don't think Dick Stewart wants people exploding out the roof and destroying his nice building. So thank you, Mercer. Before I get started, I want to say thank you to all of you for coming again. I know we've said a lot of thank yous, but also a particular thank you to the governor and other elected officials who were instrumental in getting this funding for Pritchards Island. It's a huge boost, and it's instrumental in us developing, building, and growing education outreach and research on Pritchards Island. To have this recurring funding is just huge, right? And so thank you all for that. And we have, as part of this funding, we are leading student-led research. And so, for example, here on the Beaufort campus, we had 20-plus undergraduate interns over the summer. That's paid internships, not free internships. We try not to do those anymore. We don't like those. Because if you haven't noticed, students need to eat also. They also have to pay rent. And so we want to pay them. So they're working 20, 30 hours a week during the summer. And of those 28 or 9 were specifically on Pritchard's focused projects. So those interns would not have been able to work with us without that funding. So hugely important in our mission as an undergraduate institution for teaching and for research experiences. Saw somebody laughing in the audience. What else? So thank you for that. I also wanted to say that we are hiring a new faculty member to expand sadly, one of our faculty members is retiring, so we're replacing that faculty member. But Pritchards has focused heavily in both the advertising, the recruitment of these faculty members. And so we are getting at little old USCB, to use a phrase from a football coach in the upstate that I cannot say his name. Little old USCB is attracting top quality, high quality researchers and educators from around the country. And so we had something, Kim and I are both on the search committee, 60 or so applicants, and some really good applicants. We've Tuffley, and Richard's in the audience too, he was also on the committee. And Emily too, I forgot about Emily, yeah. So the 4 of us were on the committee. We narrowed it down to 4 choices, brought them in person, and each one of them made their way out to Pritchards Island to see Pritchards Island for themselves. And I have to say, without lying, that all 4 of them loved it, were blown away. They couldn't believe that we have this island, this relatively pristine, untouched island at our fingertips that you can get to within, a little over an hour, depending on how quickly you drive to get to the boat ramp on Station Creek, or go to Fripp to paddle over. So it's a huge selling point for not only bringing research and education to Pritchards, but for growing our marine biology department that Warren, wherever you are, talked about and Mercer talked about too. So Pritchards Island is really a centerpiece for us growing this department and expanding our research and education within the department. So we are attracting, little old USCB is attracting students from all over the country. We're stealing students from what universities?
Well, we've got a friend here, so I'm not going to name him.
Well, he doesn't mind, he understands.
Coastal Carolina, sorry your numbers are dipping, but ours are.
So we are getting students when they come and look at USCB and then wind up coming here. We have students that are also looking at Coastal, College of Charleston, USC Columbia, Eckerd down in Florida, and they're choosing USCB because of what we can offer here. If you haven't noticed, you can walk outside the back door of the Marine Science Building and immediately be in the pluff mud and in the salt marsh. You can drive 5 minutes around the corner and be on the Beaufort River on a boat ramp. And like I said, in about an hour or so, we can be out at Pritchards doing research, educating. On Monday, he's going out Friday. Monday, I plan to take my invertebrate zoology lab out there just to go out at low tide and look around and see what kind of cool organisms we can find. Maybe new species, right? So we're attracting these students, and with these faculty hires, we're attracting world-class, high-quality faculty. We can sell them on our fantastic students in the back. We can sell them on arguably one of, if not the greatest outdoor laboratories in the East Coast that nobody knows about. So they come here, we take them to Pritchards to say, we can tell you that half the county is water. We can tell you that we have half the salt marshes, less than that, on the East Coast. But until you're out in that boat and winding through the tidal creeks, it doesn't really hit you. And this is selling faculty members on coming here. They love the low country. What they don't like, and Panu and Skipper, I may be getting a pink slip from you all tomorrow, is our starting salaries for our incoming faculty. Unfortunately, all these fantastic things about Pritchards and Beaufort County does not help you buy a house, does not put food on your table. You may have noticed in the past 4 or 5 years, the economy has changed. Your houses are worth a little bit more than they were 4 or 5 years ago, aren't they? And so what I ask is our elected officials to help us somehow create a more equitable starting base salary for our new faculty. I'm not asking for money for us. I'm asking us to attract better scientists, to continue the momentum we have and continue to grow this program. All right, sorry, Dr. Panu. With that being said, my research is mainly water quality. We have a water quality lab here at USCB. We study stormwater ponds. So what's going into these stormwater ponds? These ponds are meant to filter out the bad stuff and not let it into the estuary. I would argue, and in the coming years, I imagine we will have more monitoring going on and more regulation with these because not all stormwater ponds are built the same. Some are old. Some are probably functioning very well and perfectly well, others are not. And so part of what we do in the water quality lab and in my research lab is looking at what's flowing out of those stormwater ponds and how it may ultimately impact our estuary, the Port Royal Sound watershed, which is what everybody is here for, right? People stay here for the water or they move here for the water. And so if we don't protect this system, we're gonna lose that valuable resource. But we're lucky, right? Our watershed is relatively pristine and clean, and like Warren mentioned before, we haven't had major industry, right? And we also have these fantastically high tides and low tides, this large tidal range that flushes the system. So we're lucky. We're not like the Chesapeake Bay. We're not like Long Island Sound. We have a pristine environment that we can protect. And instead of being retroactive with our water quality monitoring, we can be proactive. And so that's what we're really trying to do with the water quality lab. Am I forgetting anything about water quality? I don't think so. I do want to mention, so we're partnering with the local community here has been fantastic for our department and the university. Without the local community, the USCB would not be a 4-year institution. It would not be as big as it is today. So, we as a department, we're partnering with organizations like the Port Royal Sound Foundation, like Low Country, Community Foundation of Low Country, Beaufort County, Town of Bluffton. All these organizations are coming together and helping us do better research and educating and training our students. And like Warren also mentioned, we not only have local community, but we're attracting outside people too. Coastal Carolina, we're trying to set up a network of water quality sensors around the Port Royal Sound estuary. These aren't just grabbing samples once a day, once a week. They're tracking water quality every 15 to 30 minutes. So now you have real-time water quality measurements and very high-resolution data that you can make decisions with. With that being said, the main reason I'm supposed to be up here is a couple of the projects we're doing on Pritchards, right? So nicely, they wanted me to talk about barrier erosion. And what's really cool about this is we have 2 students that have been working with us. Both are in-house, actually. One has graduated and now working at Port Royal Sound Foundation. So we do try to help our students not only graduate, but get jobs. What Joanna started out with, and then Lauren in the back has continued with this past summer, is taking aerial photography. So we had photographs of Beaufort County along the coast in 1939, I can't remember the years, 55 and 78, Joanna stitched those together and created, using ArcGIS, you basically can trace the coastline. So she did it for those 3 years, and then Loren has picked up that project and done more recently with satellite imagery from the 90s, 99? Oh yeah, that's right, sorry. It does go back further. So more recently, tracing these same coastlines to look at how these coastlines change. And so obviously Pritchard is untouched, unaltered by humans. We're not renourishing those beaches, so things are happening in a more natural state. Hunting Island does get beach renourishment periodically, as you may know. And so if you look at these lines on the map, one thing you can see, we have the 3 lines on there, and then the base map is a 2022 or so image from satellite imagery that Hunting, Harbor, Fripp are maintaining their position or even growing in places, and Pritchard, since the 70s, is marching backwards, right? So it's eroding away very quickly. At the risk of upsetting Frippers, who have been very nice and giving us access to the island, some of this is probably to do with how beaches are being stabilized and us also renourishing beaches in another part of the system. And so it changes the complete dynamic of how that sand moves in the system. And unfortunately for us, Pritchard's is suffering because of that. Next. But it's a natural system. There aren't many barrier islands that aren't renourished or fortified in some way. We can study that, right? The other project I'll talk about, and one really neat thing about Pritchard's, so I study water quality, little microbiological organisms like algae, but I'm getting involved in all these projects I never would have gotten involved with in other places. And it's all because of Pritchard's. And one of these is a project we started last December, I think. So it's been out, we put out these camera traps. I knew nothing. I knew there were cameras, wildlife cameras, but I knew nothing about camera traps and drift fences. This is all herpetology stuff, snake, reptiles, small mammals. But basically, we have buckets with the tops cut out. Oh, there's Jake back there from Braze. He's instrumental in getting this going, along with Chris Keir from the Port Royal Sound Foundation. They took buckets, cut the top off, and mount a game camera pointing down instead of out on a trail. You mount it down, and then you put an aluminum fence in between these 2 buckets, and it essentially funnels. The animals hit the bucket. They can do one of 3 things: left, right, or retreat. When they go left or right, they get funneled to the bucket. The camera has motion sensors on it, so it snaps a picture. And what we're showing here, we're seeing all kinds of cool reptiles, no amphibians on this yet, but small mammals, marsh rats and that sort of thing. What I'm highlighting here is the eastern diamondback rattlesnake, which is prevalent on Pritchards Island. For those that know eastern diamondback rattlesnakes, their populations are declining, particularly inland and north of us in North Carolina. On the coast, they seem to be fairly stable, and we have known, you talk to anybody that's been out, he's telling me to stop talking. Out to Pritchards, we have a healthy population. But so we're able to study these. The little squares on there are telling you that we can identify, because of patterns, different individuals. So we're able to track numbers of individuals with this technology too. Sorry, Warren.
All right, I want to tell you real quick about some other projects going on, and we've got the scientists in-house. So Dr. Eric Monti is starting a soundscape study, and everybody that's been around Pritchards has seen these buoys all around Pritchards and Chunkards Inlet. And the idea is to put in a permanent acoustic monitoring station to listen to ocean soundscapes. So this is really cool from a comparative study, because he's doing this all up and down the coast of South Carolina in noisier areas and more heavier populated areas. But now we get to hear what the oceans sound like around Pritchards, where there's a good bit less boat traffic, I'm imagining. And so one thing that he's listening for are animals that make noises, so red drum spawning aggregations, black drum spawning, silver perch, alligators make noises, dolphins make noises. I also want to point out, we have an interesting dolphin population around Pritchards. It's one that has not been studied. He also studies dolphin populations in other areas, and he's going to start working on our dolphin populations here, so that's going to be exciting. We have a lot of interest here now. This was actually some graduate students from a university in the Netherlands that came down to do a dune plant study up the coast of the east coast of the United States. They started in Florida, Cape Canaveral, and they ended around Maine, I think. So what they were looking for is the density of dune-building plants. There are 2 spots on Pritchards Island where this was ideal, the north end and the south end, and one thing they've already found is that there's a higher diversity of dune-building plants on the south end. It's really beautiful down there. So this has been, we got some nice drone footage as well from these areas, and they're going to share all of their data, comparing it to the rest of the east coast of the United States. So the $500,000 a year helped us get another $100,000 from an anonymous donor to start up a shorebird study on Pritchards. I don't know anything about shorebirds. I'm trying to learn. They all look alike. I'm sorry. They're just slightly different sizes, but I'm trying very hard. But I did get some experts. So we have Andy Jones, Craig Watson, Stephen Rhodes is going to come out with us as well. Jen Clementoni, who am I missing? Peggy Lucas, a bunch of experts that are Al Seegers. All of these guys just love to study shorebirds, and it's been fun getting excited, watching them get so excited about the little shorebirds. But I'm getting excited too. So all it takes is a picture like this, where you get a story. So we saw Craig Watson took this picture of a piping plover with bracelets on, and so we could tell that this bird came from the Great Lakes population, and when you start researching it, there's only 70 mating pairs left. So this guy was on our island, and that's exciting. And so just on their first trip out there, they found every species of special interest out there. So we know we're trying to figure out when, at what tide, at what time of year we're going to go out and survey these shorebirds, so that's going to be exciting. And our students are excited to learn shorebirds as well. So one of the biggest excuses I had to get out on Pritchards this summer was Abby and Robert Morris took over the sea turtle monitoring program in 2011, and they've been running this program with an incredible set of volunteers, dozens of volunteers that they've rallied for this. They talked me into taking over the monitoring program so that they can go sailing. And so this is what our students have been doing all summer, and it's been wonderful. We have had somebody on Pritchards every day for the better part of 6 months. Measuring tracks. I'm being told to wrap it up too, so you don't get as many sea turtle stories as you should. We also have a comparative study studying sea turtle nesting on Pritchards with Hilton Head. We're starting a study with Hilton Head as well, using the Hilton Head campus to collaborate with Amber, who runs the Hilton Head Sea Turtle Program. We're going to start helping to do the genetic analysis on sea turtle eggs, and this tells the maternity of the sea turtles. Like, we start to narrow down the natal beaches of how the mothers keep returning to the beaches every year, and our students have helped with this. You've seen the story of Mama Pritchards. This is a turtle that was injured in 2008, spent 2 years in the Charleston Aquarium, was released on the Isle of Palms, and now comes back every 2 years to Pritchards Island to lay nests. She skipped this year. Next year she's coming back, we hope. We also are doing science, not just monitoring. So we're putting temperature loggers on the top and the bottom of each sea turtle nest on Hilton Head and Pritchards Island. And you can kind of see a dip here where, see that last dip was Tropical Storm Debbie. Thank you. So we have lots of data to analyze from this. And this is important because climate's changing, things are getting warmer, and sex determination in sea turtles is temperature dependent. So hot chicks, cool dudes. So the hotter the temperature, the fear is that we have more female sea turtles. And it actually does take more than one male. I'm proud of you for not saying it. Another science thing that we're doing is looking for probiotics for sea turtle hatchling success. One thing that I work on outside of Pritchards research projects is looking for beneficial bacteria on great white sharks or coral reefs and applying that to different things, including antibiotics for humans. So nobody has ever looked for probiotics for sea turtle hatching success, and this is a problem worldwide. There's a pink fungus that kills all species of sea turtle nests worldwide. Okay, we have several other projects in the works. We have the inventor of the haiku box. This should be one word. This is a device that uses AI to listen to what birds are present. So it'll listen to bird songs and tell you what's there. They are going to donate some to us for the next generation that maybe listens to other sounds, other animals other than birds. And this is in real time. You can tell who's there and when. We have a bat survey project going on. So Lydia Moore with Palmetto Bluff and Jake, we put out acoustic recorders at the north end, middle, and south end of Pritchards Island on the marsh side. And just within 1 week of data, Lydia found 8 species of bats, and roughly 90% is a tricolored bat, which is a threatened species. Bats, many of these are threatened species, and this is a big deal because the more and more wind turbines that are being put out for energy, they're killing a majority of the bats. So we're going to get a baseline on what bat species are there. At least 4 species, I think, Lydia, are endangered. So this will be good for surveys. Other happenings, and then I'll wrap it up. So we have many other projects that we're planning. So Dr. Emily Webb, right here in the front, is going to be looking at mosquito-borne diseases and comparing that on Pritchards to habitat islands. Dr. D'Antonio is looking at, I'm going to get this wrong, Ed, is looking at a marine worm that actually can produce a compound that degrades BPAs, which is something that's bad for you in plastics, so that's a big deal. Dr. Staten's going to be working on that relic pluff mud that you saw pictures of, and some other shrimp, he likes things like that. We'd like to do bigger things as well. We'd like to bring back the artist retreat on Pritchards, where we get photographers, poets, artists on Pritchards. We're working out the logistics for that to be able to stay overnight. That's going to take a little finagling. We would love to build a dock on the backside of Pritchards. I just got a quote for that, so that's going to take a little finagling. What am I forgetting as far as other projects that we're working on? Okay, so with that said, this is a logo that one of my students, Jenna McCarty, drew for us. And then with that, I think I would like to ask the Chancellor up to introduce the Governor.
We are absolutely grateful for the attendance here this evening of Governor McMaster. It is truly an honor to host you here tonight. Governor McMaster's support for the continued presence of USCB on Pritchards Island and his key assistance in providing the resources for our research and educational activities have been absolutely vital. The governor is a strong supporter of ensuring our environment is protected even as we continue to be one of the fastest growing states in the nation. Out of this concern, he established the South Carolina Office of Resilience, an agency committed to enhancing the state's ability to absorb and thrive in the face of environmental changes and natural hazards. Governor, your leadership has been instrumental in the growth of interest in Pritchards Island research and the role of the barrier islands in the coastal resilience. Our goal this evening has been to report to you on what we are doing to make real the vision of Philip Rhodes and to let you know that we are working hard at USCB to build a world-class marine biology program. Ladies and gentlemen, the 117th Governor of South Carolina, Henry McMaster.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that very much, Mr. Chancellor. And I'll tell you, that was a thrilling thing we just saw with all those
professors, particularly that crazy guy there, Mercer. I'd love to. I'd make better grades if I'd had more professors like you. I got a lot of things I'd like to tell you, but not that much time. But I'm delighted to be here and glad to hear of this progress. It's really important. And I realize that a lot of times people don't realize how great the places are, the things they know, the people they know. And if y'all like music, I love music, all kind of music. And Bob Dylan sang a song years ago. It said, "I once had mountains in the palm of my hand, rivers that flow through every day. I must have been mad I didn't realize what I had. I threw it all away." Well, we don't want to say that about what we have. And I think people around the country, and particularly in this state, while we're growing so and we're seeing pressures and we see what's happened to other places, that we realize that we're living in paradise. If you can't be happy here with the pine forests and the low country and the salt marshes, I didn't realize half of them on this coast were in this county. I didn't know that. A lot of things we don't know, but if you can't be happy and find peace here, you're probably just going to have to wait till you get to heaven, because there's nothing any better. In fact, what we're doing, I think, what our people and a lot of others are starting to focus on is how important this is and how easily it can be lost. And we've realized that our economic prosperity, our educational excellence, and our environmental and cultural heritage are all parts of the same thing. It's like a three-legged stool of progress, the way I look at it, and if one of them is weak, the other two won't hold you up. So we have to work at one of them. And fortunately, the people of this state and others, I think, are getting more and more focused on what we have seen here today, this evening. And I'd be willing to bet there's not another spot on this earth that has the potential for this kind of scientific research and progress than this one right here, particularly when you hear what I've just heard for the first time tonight. So it just takes common sense. And here's a little story to help you remember it. You may have heard this one, because I've told it before. It's about the city slicker that was leaving the big city and driving out down south, going to a buddy's New Year's Eve party. And he's driving his big car, never been in this part of the world. Driving along his New Year's Eve, dark, stormy night, raining, couldn't see a thing. Windshield wipers just flapping, and didn't see the stop sign, went right through it. Bam! Ran into something. Wreck. Jumped out, and there's a farmer in there in a pickup truck. He's climbing out real slow. A little guy from up north ran over to big city. He says, "Are you not hurt, are you?" Farmer says, "No, I'm not. I ain't hurt." He said, "Well, you're not going to sue me, are you?" He says, No, I don't usually sue people." He said, "Well, it wasn't my fault." He said, "I'm not saying it is." And the city slicker said, "Well, since we're here, and I'm not going to make it to the New Year's Eve party tonight, and we're not hurt, I got a bottle of liquor in the trunk. I think we ought to take a swig and celebrate our good health." The farmer says, "Okay." City slicker takes it down, gulp, 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 holds it down, and says, "Here, your turn." The farmer says, "I think I'll wait till after the police get here." Common sense. Everything we're doing is common sense. I have a friend once said, "I wish common sense were a little more common around some parts of the world." But Rhodes family, I want to thank you for what your granddaddy did and what you are doing. I wish everybody would do that. But you know, more and more people are. We're experiencing some great things here. Where's Ben Duncan? Ben Duncan, stand up again. Ben's Office of Resilience. Where is he? Yeah. There he is right there, Ben Duncan. If you have a question about anything I'm talking about, call Ben Duncan. Okay. All right, Ben, sit down. Ben's great. But people are starting, I think, more and more to realize that the time is now. It is time now to do this preservation, to be careful with our natural and cultural environment now, when we will probably succeed, because if we wait, we will in all likelihood lose, because the pressures are coming. houses, costs are going up. You can get you a nice house, a nice $2 million house on some of our beaches now for about $5 million if you show up before tomorrow morning. I mean, prices are going up just out of the roof. But here's what I have seen this happening that I want to tell you about. As I say, we're really, it seems to me we're waking up. We're living in paradise. And we have learned that in order to make progress, we need to work together. We call it communicate, collaborate, and cooperate. Works every time. To digress for a moment, where I learned it, I was U.S. attorney, and Ronald Reagan said, do something, all you U.S. attorneys, go after the drug smugglers. Well, at that time, we had a lot of cocaine, not cocaine, a little bit of cocaine, mainly hashish and marijuana coming in all over the place. Law officers were catching people all over, but we we'd catch these little guys, but nobody knew who's bringing all this stuff in. Well, we couldn't find out. Nobody knew. So the IRS agent, Criminal Investigative Division from North Carolina, walked in the door, said, I got an idea for you. Follow the money. Do like we do on a net worth tax case. Find people that are spending way more money, got way more wealth, didn't inherit it. They're just spending, and they don't have any real job. And chances are, that's a drug smuggler, because they make a lot of money and they just throw it away wildly. So we started doing that, and we put together a team, and that's where the cooperation came in. FBI knew at that time, the FBI didn't investigate drug cases at all, but they do now. But they knew about banking, banks, all of that, international flow of money, so did Customs. The State Law Enforcement Division knew about all the landscape and all the little harbors, inlets, the rivers, and all that. They knew the ground. Drug Enforcement Administration knew all about drugs. So we put together a team, wasn't ever done before, FBI, DEA, Customs, Customs Patrol, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, Internal Revenue Service, and SLED. Had them all working out of the same office, the same room, not independently and get together every now and then. They were working together. Just a couple examples, U.S. Customs and FBI, U.S. Customs and IRS, Criminal Investigative Division, not the tax people, but the investigators, went to a little dealership, a Mercedes dealership, I'm pretty sure it's in Charleston somewhere. And a fellow walked in, he was a tennis pro at a country club. Said, I want to buy a Mercedes. These agents were asking, anybody come in here? Yeah, not too long ago, a tennis pro came in. He didn't have any money. We knew he couldn't afford it, so we said we'd work out a payment plan. He said, that's okay, I'll take that one. And he opened up the trunk on his BMW and shelled out whatever the price was for a brand new Mercedes. Well, these agents, like I say, they were sharp. They realized right off that's suspicious. So they wrote that country club tennis pro's name down. Well, a little while later, somewhere around Calibogue Sound, they were going up in there somewhere, the customs agents, and they were floating around looking for things. And they saw something that looked like the mast on a sailboat sticking up out the water. So they got a skin diver and went down, and sure enough, it was a brand new sailboat, a nice one. It had been scuttled right there in the water. Well, nobody throws away a perfectly good sailboat. So they thought, this is odd. They fished out all the junk and stuff floating around in there, some papers and beer cans, that sort of stuff, maybe a couple of maps, nothing of any real significance. But they brought it back to where the team was working, where those agents would meet every day working on these cases. And they laid the stuff out and the papers dried up, and the agents would walk through from time to time during the day. Finally, one of them said, what are these papers here? And he said, we got those out the sailboat. He said, why do you ask? He says, because these numbers, 4306, those are the last four digits of the tennis pro's telephone number, who lives over on Mount Pleasant. That's just that easy. And then they went to the courthouses. They found sales, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, cash sales of lots. At that time, this all happened prior to 1981. We didn't catch anybody in the act bringing all this stuff in from overseas. We followed the trail and found them. And they went in, there were these sales, these transactions, purchases of very expensive property by people who didn't seem to have any money. So they went to see the lawyers, because the lawyers were involved and had signatures on every deed, no mortgages. and they said, we are here, I'm with the FBI, and he's from U.S. Customs. We want to talk to you about smuggling, drug smuggling. He said, I give up. I knew it was too easy. I did it. I helped him. The money was irresistible. What do you want to know? And so they told on each other all over the place. And ladies and gentlemen, we ended up indicting over a period of time. These were people who had already done all this. It was 133 of them. They were 132 men, one woman. They were at ranges in ages from somewhere, I think, in about the mid-20s up to about the 40s. There was one Hispanic woman. All the rest were men. A lot of them were college educated. I think the majority had some college. One Hispanic. All the rest were white men. And none of them had a criminal record or had been involved in any kind of illegal activity before. Nobody was suspecting them of anything. But among them over those years, they brought in almost $1 billion worth of drugs at those years' prices, and none of them had been caught. So we ended up, of course, sending them to jail. It took a while. But that's how, in communicating, collaborating, cooperating, it works every time, and we're doing it now. And that's what y'all are doing. Under the auspices of this fine school, this is going to make a big difference for the whole state, for the whole country, and I believe for the world as well. Do you know, I read somewhere that senescence is not a term used for alligators. That is, they have no normal lifespan. Nobody knows how long they could live. They just get too big to find food, or they get sick, they catch a disease, or they get hit by a propeller or something like that. But they can live for many, many years. And the same thing with sharks, same thing with jellyfish. I think some jellyfish can live 300 or 400 years. I want to find out what those things are eating. There's people say, why you care about a jellyfish? Well, that's one reason. There's bound to be something. No telling what we're going to find out from this work that's being done. But let me finish up with some things that I think you'll enjoy this progress. You remember when I was lieutenant governor, and some lawyers for Ted Turner came to the office, and they were interested in selling St. Philip's Island. We tried to put something together, couldn't get anything going. They didn't come back. But in 2017, they came around again, and we were able to buy St. Philip's Island. It has one house on it, as y'all probably know, $4,680 for $4.9 million. 680 acres for $4.9 million. Now, that's a good thing. It's not going to be developed. We're working on Bay Point Island. We don't want them to develop that. I've written some letters and those sorts of things. It seems to be going the right way. Let's see, Wadey's Island, just north of Myrtle Beach. We've bought two sections of that, each for, I think, about 260 acres. The whole thing is about 1,819 acres. We're working on that. Snow's Island, we just got that just recently with cooperation from a lot of people. I think it's the Open Space Institute, some others, Darla Moore, a bunch of folks. We created a fund that allowed us to grab it, hold on to it, and then work out getting the money later, which we did. But that's 7,700 acres over in the PD. Now, the interesting thing with that is that was where Francis Marion's base was, his hideout during the Revolutionary War, which, as you know from your history, was one in South Carolina, although they finished it up north. It was actually one here. When Cornwallis said, we can't beat these people, our southern strategy is not going to work, it's over, let's go on back up, which they did. But that's 7,700 acres. And of course, the British couldn't find his hideout, and we haven't found it yet either, but we think now that we have the island, we think we'll be able to do that. Also, we have another project that was just announced called the PD project, and it's three different big parcels of land, Marion County, Williamsburg County, and Georgetown County, for 62,000 acres. That has easements on it. It will not be developed. Ramsey Grove, when SCE&G sold everything to Dominion, they had to give back some tax breaks that the state had given them, and they wanted to swap some property for some money, so we did that. and we picked up a place called Ramsey Grove down on the Black River just up from Georgetown, 2,600 acres. But this kind of activity where we're putting these easements, conservation easements on this property, and when we're protecting these beaches and protecting all the science that can come from all of it, that is an effort that is going to produce results for this state, for our people, and for people all over this country. So I want to thank you all with all your talents, with your influence, with your interest, for communicating, collaborating, and cooperating with each other. That is the way that you make progress. And anything, Chancellor, Rhodes, anyone else I see Larry Rowland, who's writing the history of all this. We got to know our history. We appreciate that. And by the way, I was listening to the professors, and they kept talking about their students. And that's where the energy is. I like to read history, and Walter Edgar has written a great book, as you all know. It's about that thick. You know where he found the time to do all of that? All his students all those years, they're picking up these bits and pieces and putting them together. If you want to read about this place, you get that book and you don't have to read anymore. But that is what's going on in this state. I don't think there's another place where you can find the talent, the interest, the brain power, the enthusiasm, and the raw assets that we have here. And I remember I was at a meeting with Christy Todd Whitman years ago, who was the governor of New Jersey, but also was head of the EPA for a few years. And we were up in a building across the street from the Capitol building in Columbia, and looking down on the confluence of the Congaree, the Broad and the Saluda formed the Congaree. It changed colors, changed temperature, and all that. All the history, but as far as you could see, is green, green, green. Is just beautiful. And I was telling her about the great future of South Carolina. She says, yes, you really do have a great future. This is a great state. I hope you don't mess it up. Well, we haven't messed it up. And because of what you're doing and what others are doing, we're not going to mess it up. And it's going to be an even better place to live, work, and raise a family. So one final story about there's a fellow that salesman is traveling around the country years ago when they had payphones everywhere. Y'all remember payphones? Well, when he's out away from home on a Sunday, he'd like to find a little church to go to. And so he did. And he was at a place one time, his Sunday, found a little church, went into the little social hall. There's a payphone on the wall, and it had a little sign up on it. He looked at it, looked close, and said, "Calls to heaven, $10. Said, that's interesting. He didn't have $10 in change, of course, so couldn't make the call. Went to another place, saw it again, another state. Little church, little social hall. Looked at it, calls to heaven, $10. Said, this is interesting. Well, for several weeks, he'd look and see. Sometimes he saw it, sometimes he didn't. Well, he came to South Carolina. It was a Sunday, went to the little church, social hall, went in there. Sure enough, there's a payphone and there's a sign. Calls to heaven, 10 cents. He says, this is interesting. He says, hey, preacher, why explain this to me? Everywhere else the calls to heaven are $10. Here's 10 cents. Can you explain that? He said, sure. South Carolina calls to heaven are local calls. You got it? Don't forget it. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank Governor for his support this evening. I also want to thank Senator Davis, Senator Campson, Representative Erickson, Representative Herb Kurzman, as well as mayors and council members for their attendance, and obviously for their steadfast support. And I especially wish to thank Stephen Rhodes and his daughter Martha Rhodes McClendon. And I hope you are confident that your father's and grandfather's legacy is in good hands. Ladies and gentlemen, please feel free to explore our display tables, speak with our students and our outstanding faculty, and ask any questions that you might have about Pritchards Island. And thank you so much for joining us tonight. And I also want to briefly end with a quick announcement. This year, USCB is celebrating its 20th anniversary of becoming a four-year degree granting institution. And we have a series of events that have been scheduled for that, and we invite you to participate. And I think it's a tremendous encouragement for all of us and for our community, and we truly appreciate the support. Thank you again, and please mingle and ask questions, and we truly appreciate your being here this evening. Thank you.